Paul Atreides must go to Arrakis, the most dangerous planet in the universe, to ensure the safety and future of his family and people, while also dealing with a great destiny that he has been born into. Dune has been one of my most anticipated movies of 2021 ever since I read Frank Herbert's masterpiece of a novel. I adore that book. It's one of my favorite novels of all time. I personally cannot think of a better filmmaker to adapt this story than Denis Villeneuve. I loved Sicario. Blade Runner 2049 is amazing, and Arrival was just incredible. I was very excited to see how Denis Villeneuve was going to take on the gargantuan task of adapting a story as vast and as dense as Dune. I'll start off by saying that Dune is a visual spectacle in every sense of the word. This film looks magnificent. Denis Villeneuve is very good at blending live action and computer generated effects together so well that it's practically seamless, and sometimes you find yourself forgetting that what you're seeing on screen is partially or entirely CG. Dune is absolutely no exception. The visuals are staggering and are so seamlessly integrated into the film that they are basically real to me. Denis Villeneuve directed this movie masterfully. He doesn't shoot or edit the hand-to-hand combat action sequences in a way that feels stylized. It feels very grounded in realism. There is an extensive use of slow motion, yeah, but other than that, the action sequences feel very grounded in the way that they're executed. No one ever does a move that is physically impossible for the sake of entertainment. That was a wise choice, I feel, because even though this movie is PG-13, the brutality has more emphasis because of the choice to not film and edit the action in a more stylized fashion. The action sequences may be few and far between, but when the action kicks into gear, it's freaking awesome. This movie does a brilliant job with its world building. A lot of this movie is dedicated to building up this universe, particularly Arrakis and the Imperium that the characters are a part of. That must have been a daunting task because Dune's mythology is huge. There are so many things about this universe that this movie has to figure out how to adapt in a way that not only pleases fans of the book like myself, but also adapts those things in a way that makes it easy to understand for audience members who haven't read the book and know nothing of the world. This movie did a wonderful job at adapting the mythology of the books. It made me feel like I was experiencing a true adaptation of Dune while also making it easily accessible to audience members who haven't read the book. While the mastery of the action sequences and the visual spectacle created here is truly something to behold, my favorite thing about this movie is the characters. For me, the characters felt like the spitting image of the characters depicted in Frank Herbert's novel, but different enough to feel like unique interpretations of these characters, and I thought the performances were all incredible. Even the members of the cast that have minimal roles really do everything they can to make their characters stick out. Timothée Chalamet is perfectly cast as Paul Atreides. When I look at him and see everything from the way he looks all the way down to his mannerisms, I just see Paul Atreides. He disappears into this character. I would even say that this is so far his best performance. Oscar Isaac was also very good as Duke Leto. I really loved the way this movie depicted his arc from the book. Rebecca Ferguson stole the show as Lady Jessica. She was not only my favorite character, but her performance in this movie is truly incredible. I genuinely think this performance is Oscar worthy. Obviously, whether or not she would win is up for debate, but I would gladly say that Ferguson should be nominated. There is one thing about this movie that I had a feeling was going to really divide people on this movie, and since the film's release, that prediction has proven to be true. I don't consider this a spoiler, but if you really don't want to know anything about this movie going in, I would suggest clicking away right now. Otherwise, proceed at your own risk. Denis Villeneuve made the choice to split the first book into two parts, meaning the movie that has just been released is part one of a two-part story. A lot of people went into this movie not expecting that, including a lot of critics. In the cinema that I went to see this movie in, a lot of the audience members complained that it was a part one and not a complete story. And I've read or seen some critic reviews who criticize the film for building up towards a finale that never really comes. I genuinely understand that criticism. This isn't something like Avengers Infinity War, where even though it's a part one, it still feels like a complete story from beginning to end. This movie is blatantly a part one. The movie begins with the title card, Dune Part 1. It spends much of its runtime building to a climax that we're not going to get to see until Part 2 is released just under 2 years later. While a lot of people take issue with this move, I personally feel that this was a wise decision. The book, as amazing as it is huge. The story is dense and incredibly vast. There are a lot of storylines and characters to follow, and I personally think that squeezing all of that into one film would have been a pretty major mistake. Yeah, there is an argument to be made that this film feels so much like setup to the point where where it's basically a trailer for the next movie, and I'll admit, usually I hate it when movies do this. However, in this case, I'm fine with it because even though a lot of this film is set up for part 2, the setup was really, really good. And I can't think of a single moment of this film where I just wasn't enthralled by what was going on. I love this movie, I think it's a masterpiece, but I'm not gonna grade it. The reason being is that because this movie is so dedicated to setting up part 2, I know that how much I like part 2 is going to retroactively impact how I feel about this movie. If part 2 is great, then the 2.5 hours of setup in this movie will feel like it was worth it. But if it isn't, I won't lie to you, for me, rewatching this film will feel like watching a really good setup for a very disappointing payoff. And knowing that the payoff is disappointing won't make watching the setup very fun. So that was my review of Dune. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much as always for watching. Before I go though, I would just like to ask you guys, what did you think of Dune? Did you think it was good, bad, somewhere in the middle? Please leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and I will indeed see you guys in the next one. Until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you always.